Hello, everybody. It's a big pleasure to be with all the Poultry School audience again in this segment that we call Stories. We have a very nice guest today, Manuela Alves. It's a pleasure, Manuela, to have you here. I have the pleasure to meet you back in September in an APWA summit. And I really was impressed how you handle things and your energy in that professional environment. And as we think, and personally, I think in Poultry School, when you see people in the professional stage, everybody has a story to tell. Everybody has a good, let's say, inspiration story to share. Sometimes we don't have the opportunity to do that. Manuela, she is very sophisticated, global senior manager, marketing manager for Zinpro. So, Manuela, thank you very much for your time. How are you?
I'm doing great, Rodolfo. It's my pleasure to be here. And there is something you don't know, a secret that even though we officially met in September, I had seen you before in other places. And, I also felt the same energy in you, the times I saw you before, working hard, networking, knowing so many people. And so I felt like I already knew you in a way.
Thank you,
But
Manuela.
thank
Well,
you for having me.
maybe that we were talking before starting this is like a Latin thing that maybe we have like a maybe I don't know, it's a bad habit. We never say no and say you can do this. Yes, why not? You can do this. Why not? And then we keep rolling. So, Manuela, thank you very much for that. So, why don't you tell us who is Manuela? Where you come from?
Hmm.
Where we know that you are now in a corporate position, but how that happened to you, your passion, how you have been doing to today.
Yeah. Um, I let's start from the beginning a little bit. I'm from Brazil originally, even though I have lived the same amount of time in Brazil and the US by now. I have been in the US for a very long time. Back in Brazil, my family is in its fourth generation of farming. So the
Wow.
farming business is being passed now to the hands of the fourth generation at the moment. I'm third. My dad didn't want much to do with farming, so I grew up in big cities, still connected to the family, of course, and visiting and seeing the farms and all, and developed a very strong connection with nature, the land, and animals. That was always in my DNA. So through serendipity, I was living in California in ag land in the middle of crops and dairy when I suddenly had the opportunity to go work for ag. And that's how it all started. This was in 2005, so 20 years ago. And so I brought my marketing experience and my passion for ag back to let's say to my roots and started working in this industry. So I call it serendipity.
And what's serendipity for you?
Serendipity is, being at the right time at the right place, things when the stars align, the perfect storm.
Okay. Okay.
Something like that.
Do you think that that serendipity stage, or let's say behavior, is something natural, or you can work on that?
Ooh, I think it's both. I think that the more you connect with uh, the things around you and with your purpose, I think the more aligned you are with what's coming, and you start looking for it and things start looking for you in a way. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it does take a little bit of work, and it's also a little bit of, it's, I think it is in everyone's nature, but not everyone really necessarily um, wants to connect with it, right? It's a personal choice.
How do you feel coming from the, let's say, ag in the, or ag environment so natural? For example, if you are telling me that your background is from family ag, let's say, history, and then I can say that because I have seen you perform in the corporate, let's say, stage. How you feel being coming from there, and now all the frame that needs to be, that is needed to be like
That's a really good question.
playing like a corporate role,
Mhm.
a corporate role, meetings, schedules,
Yeah,
planification, budgets. Do you are flexible to do that?
that's such a good question. I'm going to be honest. It was never a very natural or uh, easy thing to do. In to just be at this corporate world when the environment around you is a little more constrained and people are expecting certain behaviors or certain actions from you. But I think over time, um, I was able to find myself, my true self, find what is comfortable to me, what is the Manuela that is happy in this environment, and above all, the best thing, find the right place for me, the right company, the right culture, the place where you can you can feel that all of that feels natural. It's not it's not constrained or difficult. So I think you have to look for the right place to be able to make it all work, to have your passion, your purpose, um, your roots, and still be able to do things that might be a little bit different and new.
At what age did you do you left Brazil?
I was 24.
Wow. So my question is, do you miss your roots sometimes?
Um, of course I do. I think I have been extremely lucky and privileged that to be able to be in global companies all these years, which allow me to be exposed to the culture constantly, to have coworkers and friends who are from the same culture, to go back and for meetings, work, or visit. So I miss it, but I feel that I never left it.
Wow, that's a big concept. I like that. It's inside you.
Exactly.
And if you can recall or you can think, what is your best root, let's say, tradition, or your best root frame that you can express here today, something your grandmother or something that somebody teach you when you were a
Mm,
child.
yeah. I grew up with my dad, so I didn't have the opportunity to meet my parental, my grandfather on my dad's side, who was the original farmer of the family. He passed when I was 3 years old, but my dad always said that one of the things he repeated, he'd never finished high school, but he made sure that all his kids had a good education because he said that the only thing no one can take away from you is knowledge. It's the only thing
Agree.
that you can always keep for yourself. So we have, after that, we started having generations of um, people who not only did graduate degrees, but it went above and beyond because of that concept. And I think that's the biggest teaching of all for all of us.
Well, I may add that together with education is be brave to experience, to have different experience. And we were talking before this conversation, maybe we're used to level the experience, good or bad.
True.
But if you follow, let's say, your inner guidance, you put it in that way, everything is gonna be okay. But the thing is, the knowledge with the experience, wow, make a very, very strong asset.
100%. There is a lot, you're right. There is a lot that you learn from education, but the biggest lessons come from experience, right? The biggest learnings. I think you're absolutely right. And I think that was something he also unintentionally, um, created in the family DNA, because recently all of us, my generation in the family, was all together. And one of the things that one of my cousins, the oldest cousins, brought up was, I think at the end of the day, all of us are big adventurers. We
That's a
all
good
have
one.
that in common, which goes with the experience you're talking about. You still have to wanted to go out there and experience things.
So that's very nice concept. In our first conversation, Manuela, that was a couple of months ago, uh, I shared with you my experience when I met you in that event that you guys placed in UGA, and really captured my attention when I shared with you that you were, let's say, on the top of that event. You were handling everything. And I told you that my perception, and I'm not wrong, obviously, I think that what captured my attention was your confidence.
Mm,
And when I shared that with you, that you did like a trigger. But the thing is, with work in this conversation, we discussed a little bit about the confidence. Where that confidence come from? It's something that you is in you. Maybe you sometimes are scared, and how that relate to your job or your to in your work right now to be a leader.
mm-hmm.
How you handle that perception of
Yeah.
you or us being confident, and sometimes we don't recognize that asset in us. Sometimes we don't think that we're so confident enough, but then we need to show confidence in our environment. What
Mm.
do you think about that?
Yeah. You never make the conversations easy, do you, Rodolfo?
No, 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 no.
No.
I cheat you. I cheat you in the list of the
Uh,
conversation. Say, okay, I'm
yeah.
gonna give this. I'm gonna give this. So,
Well, I think that first, thank you so much for being so kind and in sharing your positive perceptions about me. Obviously, I think we never do anything alone. The situation you're bringing up last September in Georgia, I think there was a whole team that working side by side with me, colleagues, and others who obviously made me very confident that we could do what we did, right? So I think it's fundamental that you always are surrounded by people who trust you and who you trust. um, but my confidence, I think confidence is built in different ways for different people. I say that because I was not a confident child. I'm not a confident person by nature. I don't, I would never define myself as a confident person. But I think survival made me have to be confident. I look at my youngest child and a girl as well, and she is confident by nature. That's why I can tell
okay.
you the difference, because I have someone in front of me who amazes me every day by how confident someone can be, and it's a whole new experience to me.
Wow, that's very interesting. But you were pointing that maybe is something, yeah, that you need to work on. Do
Mm-hmm.
you have some protocols or some routines that you can focus and say, well, I'm going to improve these, or it's just the nature of your environment, like family, work, whatever.
Yeah. you know i I remember as a a preteen or a teenager, the things that of being scared of things, right? Having that anxiety before doing things that were new to me. or different. And it was hard, but what I used to tell myself was, I'm not going to let that stop me. I'm not going to let that take the experience away
Wow.
from me. So I also always forced me myself to do things that are difficult. And it's very uncomfortable, but I think that's how I plowed through these things. I'm not saying it's the best or the right way, but that's how I did it. Um, and I think it got to a point where then things became comfortable to do.
Yeah, and part of the nature of this conversation, Manuela, and we discussed this earlier or in another conversation, is that I have noticed, and obviously I think that you put attention to this concept, is we have a lot of students right now in the US, let's put it, international students, maybe like your case, that they come to the US, they get a college degree, and then they need to go to the marketplace to get into the industry. We're talking about poultry school, let's say about poultry, and maybe they need to hear from people like you that you already pass all these experiences and inspire them that
Mm,
it is possible, even that if they have some struggle, they have some difficulties, that they can have access to be working and providing their value to the industry in different companies. So that is doable. And this is the spirit of this segment in Poultry School, is having like an open conversation and show to the new generation that it's possible, that they are humans, that there is a life that needs to be experienced.
yeah. Um, I think that there are very few industries that I know of that have so much openness to this exchange of um, workforce globally, that you can move around uh, with certain ease. And I think that the ag industry, specifically poultry, is one of them. You see I have colleagues and friends in the industry who come from all parts of the world, and any country you go, it's the same. It's a very global industry. It's also an industry and a field, agriculture, right, that has a labor shortage overall, which makes this the workforce is even more dynamic and adaptable,
Mm.
because people are moving around and changing gears all the time and having to fill the gaps. So I think that's an opportunity for anyone coming to the industry, um, that that your where you come from, your background is not um, a barrier. It's actually very welcome.
Yeah, I was having a conversation today with another person, and we were pointing the power of the conversation that really captured my attention. The, I think that less and less we're losing that with social media, telephones,
Mm,
and maybe the new generations are losing that touch. That if you can meet somebody, go and meet him, grab a cup of coffee, go to have a lunch, a sandwich. But that sweetness of being open and have conversation, I think is necessary, not just as human beings, but in our industry. That when I have my professional part, when I do my visits or I gather with people, what I really enjoy is the being out of the meetings and out of the farms. And when I start knowing the people in lunch, in dinner, or riding 3, 4 hours in a car, wow, you really start making that connections, and then the ideas or the task or the purpose of the trip flows
Yeah, that's
after
very
the
wise.
connection.
That's a very wise comment. I agree 100%. I think that we see that the power of conversation, and also the opposite effect when it doesn't happen everywhere. I see that even in my own household, where sometimes our biggest disagreements are around not having enough communication or enough time to communicate because everyone is
Completely
busy
agree.
or on the phone. And there are so many missed opportunities, and it's the same everywhere you go.
For you, Manuela, what is your concept of leadership? If you
Mm.
put together all your story coming from Brazil, going to college, now your position, what is your concept of leadership?
Mm. I think um, it's leadership comes with a lot of responsibility, but ultimately, I think that when you are in any leadership position, it doesn't matter where or what kind the nature of that position. I think the biggest role is to empower others. You have to be able to empower and inspire others. There is, I think, there was a time, and I think there are still a lot of leaders out there who believe that being a leader is um, telling people what to do, or uh, um, it's a position of power. And I never believed that. um, I think it's very difficult not to be influenced by that when you are in environments and places where people around you see leadership that way. um, I think that might have been one of the biggest struggles in the beginning of my career, not being able to differentiate one thing from the other, and others end up expecting you to lead the way they lead. Um, but over time, I think you find your own way and you learn that that's not leadership. And then you find spaces in people and in cultures and companies where um, you can be a true leader, and you can be that leader who is not looking for the gaps in other people or what's missing, but focusing on the strengths, and focusing on what elevates that person, what elevates the company, the culture, and empowering them to be better than you, actually. Because that's what you want the next generations to be.
That's humble. That's humble. Yeah.
I say that to my own kids. um, I'm teaching you to be better than me. There are things I'm teaching you that I don't know how to do, that I don't do well, but I hope
Yeah.
you can do that well. So I think it's that servant leadership concept is how I see it.
Yeah, and maybe Manuela, in these times that our teams are globally with different cultures, different mentalities, that right now the globe, the planet is an envelope,
Right.
right? Is yeah, we are related to so many people with different cultures and different ideas and different kinds of thinking that being a leader sometimes you need to be very open
It's
and understand
wonderful. And
different
it's,
things.
yeah, it's sometimes the hardest part, but the best part is just to sit back, um, and let people be their best.
Yeah, that's a very good thinking. The next topic, Manuela, is kind of sensitive, but I really like to go into it because sometimes nobody talk about that. And we have all these seminars about nutrition or manufacturing, feed manufacturing or slaughterhouse, but we are humans, and especially with your role, how do you handle your personal, let's say, goals, your personal dreams, family, and company goals. Because at the
Mhm.
end of the day, we need to have a balance, right?
Right. Right.
And again, like me, I just meet you. You were playing the role of handling an event, but and this is the sensitive part because I believe that it has been a change in the woman leadership because in the past the woman needs to be at home or doing another kind of duties, but now it's a big change.
Mhm.
So how do you handle your personal balance, your family balance, and your company balance in the right way or not make you crazy?
Yeah. Um, it's not, it's like you said, it's not an easy question and it's not an easy task. It's still today,
Hmm.
right? Because um, whether people want to know it or not, you know, when women have kids, especially, um,
Hmm.
your life changes and you are forever going to be a mom. And that's always going to be a huge part of who you are and your responsibilities. And you don't just turn on and off that button when you go to work.
Completely.
It just doesn't happen, right?
Hmm.
Um, and it was very hard for me in the beginning of my career and when my kids were younger and in the companies I was working, at during those times. It wasn't easy. I think it still isn't easy for anyone, any woman, especially in the United States. Um, but I think over time you have to create your own boundaries and you have to know what you really want and what's really important to you, and it's different to each person, and there is no right and wrong, right? Everyone is different on the expectation of their own lives, the expectations of their own lives. So to me, um, it took me a long time, but I had to prioritize and really be sure first for myself what was important. And certainly quality of life, family time, mental health, all these things come first. And um, I think um, that was the most important thing, most important moment in my career was when I was able to say that is what matters and that's what I'm going after. And then finding a place, a culture, and a role where I could feel that those things had space.
And just going back what you just mentioned, when you say why is difficult to play that role in the USA
Um,
of being a mom and being in the work.
it starts with maternity leave being so short. For those who
Oh,
don't
okay, good point.
know, there are only 6 weeks, while Brazil is 6 months, Canada is a year, and so on and so forth. And then childcare is extremely difficult to find, quality childcare, and especially after the pandemic, the costs are extremely high. Um, And I was lucky enough that my husband worked for some companies that provide childcare. I have had the opportunity to have some childcare costs also covered as benefits, but these are exceptions, in the workplace. So that's what I was referring to.
Okay, so for you right now, after all your story that you have been sharing with us, for you today, what is success?
um,
Because I'm gonna elaborate a little bit more because I think that maybe 5 years ago was a different concept. 10 years
yeah,
ago was different, but today, what is success for you?
yeah. So success is different for everyone. And
Agree.
it's okay. I think that's the first realization you have to have. Not
It's not
everyone
good or
should
bad.
look
It's not good or bad answer.
right. No, everyone, not everyone. You should not look at success the same way your sibling or your partner or your parents or anyone looks at. It's your own success. It's what it means to you. I think it took me forever to get to that point where I asked myself, am I doing these things for me, or am I doing these things because other people think is important?
Wow, but
Um,
that's a good thing. At least you
yeah,
reach that point to making your own questions.
exactly. And I think for a long time I did things because of other people, and when I say other people, I'm not talking about society, because there is a lot of pressure that way too. I'm even talking about close people to me, family, oh, you can do this, you should do that, you would be so good at it, or and you keep pushing and pushing and pushing, but is it really making me happy? I think that is the big question, and I wasn't happy. So I really had to stop and reevaluate what success looked like for me, what I would gonna look back once I'm of age and say, yeah, I did reach my goal. And to me is a few of the things we talked about, quality time, family time, mental health, but also purpose. Do I believe in the things that I'm working on? Do I believe in the company that I'm working for? um, do I have people around me every day um, who bring me a sense of belonging, of purpose? So I think all these things are very important to me, and that's how I define success. It's being able to have all of that in my life at once.
Do you think that your identity is measured by your dreams?
My identity is measured by my dreams.
See, because at the end is your purpose. Is some
Mm.
relation of that? That at the end is your dreams, your purpose, and if that make you happy.
Yeah, if I'm understanding the question, I mean, to me personally, purpose is a huge thing. Um, so being able to dream that that's possible and pursuing that is very important.
Sometimes the journey is fulfill you more than the goal, that reaching the goal.
Exactly. 100%. Beautifully said.
Yeah, because at then being, let's say, with that expectation that something greater is coming, some that expectation, if we relate that to the concept of confidence, that
Yeah,
you feel that you can do it, and living with that spark, with that flame, with that
right.
fire inside you, that you're moving forward to a goal. And maybe when you reach the goal, it's just okay, this is it. Now what? What's next?
Yes,
Huh?
right. True. Very true.
So we have 15 more minutes, Manuel, in this conversation. We're gonna move away from the personal and leadership and the story that I really enjoy, and I'm very happy, and I really appreciate your vulnerability to be open. Manuela, going to the poultry industry, what do you think are the if you name the three challenges for the poultry industry that you see
Mm.
in the short term, in the next 5 years?
Yeah. First, let's say that I think the poultry industry has way more opportunities than challenges. Um, it's a very exciting, very prosperous industry with a lot of opportunities, which is very unique. But if you look at the challenges, um, we already talked about today, the challenge with the labor that's being in agriculture, in different parts of the food chain, especially in poultry. So that's one. I think that will continue. Um, the the ability to get people with expertise to work in the area as well, which is also related to labor. We need to be able to recruit, to continue recruiting people to come to this industry and to agriculture. That's been a challenge for more than a decade. So I think that is another challenge. Um, a big one, I think, for us that's been for a while and will probably continue is the consumer demands, the expectations from consumers, the perceptions they have of how food should be produced, how animals should be raised, um, and the misunderstanding sometimes too as how these things work in our industry. So because of that, I think another great challenge is communication, how we communicate to
Great
people who
point.
are not in our industry. I think that is the biggest challenge of all. um, how do we bridge the gap between, agriculture and everyone else who eats and who needs to know how food's made and where it comes from and how much farmers care and all of that. So that is probably the biggest challenge, which also leads us to sustainability, because it's another big challenge for every industry, including the poultry industry, is how do we show that we are every day working towards better animal welfare and nutrition and health and best practices and all of that towards sustainability and many other important things for consumers as well.
Yeah, I really relate. Um, I'm gonna go back to the day that I met you and Paco, and I still using Paco example in poultry school. In poultry school, we're focusing in education, and what you just shared to us really were completely aligned in two concepts. First of all, first, when I met Paco, he started his presentation showing a TikTok video of a young guy, maybe in his 20s, showing a pale breast and a dark breast. That the dark breast, he bought him from the supermarket, and he was saying, "Oh, these breasts may be contaminated and maybe some disease, and these guys from the chicken industry is poisonous and blah blah blah." And this is at the right breast was very white. And
Right.
then Paco was saying, okay, the issue here was in the slaughterhouse that is a bruise and doesn't have nothing to do with contamination. It's just management that for some reason went into the market. But at the end of the day, it's a fake news.
Yeah, it's out there, isn't it?
Is a fake news. And then Paco point 4 million views. And then he said to us, we, like poultry industry, that supposedly we have the true what we're doing, sharing the good message. And
Absolutely.
sadly, we don't do so much.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't share the good news that we have good management, that we have good animal welfare management, that we have good procedures. We're not spreading the good news. And I really relate with you with saying communication. We
Mm-hmm.
need to learn, first of all, doing this more often, that you and I are doing more. You have your knowledge, you have your passion, you have your value to the industry, and let's get connected. Let's create some new proposal to the industry and share knowledge. Let's connect each other and offer some solutions to the society. And the
Mm-hmm.
second thing that is our core business and core focus is education. Because when you say we need to capture more people with good skills, but then how we educate them. And I think it's not because you're here. I think that you guys are doing a really good job putting attention, putting resource in education. That is something that not all companies has the same vision.
Yeah, thank you. And I have to, you mentioned Paco Fernandez, my great
Mm-hmm.
colleague, extremely
Mm-hmm.
knowledgeable, who has contributed so much to education in our industry, and especially towards animal welfare. I agree 100% with you. We have a lot of good people in the industry and a lot of great companies doing, you know, uh, creating different initiatives, working in different efforts towards food safety, um, animal health, you name it. But we usually only hear people talk about that glass half empty and what's missing.
Yeah, and I believe that getting together and open the communication space is something that we need to do more often. Like the summit that you guys sponsor, or those kinds of meetings that we relate, we connect, but then we need to create the programs to educate uh, the industry. Is something that we need to come together. One more question, because it's the question that is, let's say, booming, is AI. I think that you guys are focusing in AI. What's coming for you? For
Yeah.
Manuela, how do you see that?
So you're talking about artificial intelligence, right? Because in
Yes.
our industry
Mm-hmm.
we have
No,
artificial
artificial
insemination
intelligence.
and avian influenza.
No, no,
So
no, 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 no. Artificial intelligence. Sorry about that.
no, that's good. That's what I thought. So I I think our AI, this is obviously a subject like everything else that's new that has opportunities and risks, right? It has both sides. There will be good things and bad things that will come out of it until we learn to only use the best of it. Um, but I think that it will bring uh, some very positive things to the industry. We have seen technology be used, especially in the poultry, in agriculture in general, in crops, everywhere.
Yeah,
Uh,
massive.
but especially in poultry, with great purpose. Robotics, sensors, you name it. It's been around they have been incorporated into our industry for a very long time, very successfully. So I see AI as one more of these technologies that will benefit us in the long run. I think it will help bring some efficiencies potentially. It will give more access to knowledge at a faster speed. So it might bring even more speed to the industry. At the end of the day, I don't think anything will replace humans when it comes to the soft skills. You still need all those soft skills and that decision making, right? That come from humans, and I think that those will be the skills that will be actually um, the biggest assets in the marketplace in the future. But yeah, I think we will need to work through the risks and the challenges that it might cause, but we are resilient and we will keep the good things going.
Yeah, I think that is something that so many people is scared. Maybe it's mentality, maybe it's age. Uh, because the thing is, I think that the young generation is more used to it, to be open to these skills or
Mm-hmm.
these solutions. That maybe people that
Yeah,
are coming from another environment, it's like when the internet came into the society back then in end of the 80s, right?
yeah.
So now is something that we need to learn how to use it. And one final question, Manuela, because we focus in education. What do you think of the educate? Which are the most efficient, say, education programs now that in these days that we have lack of attention. Everybody's reading less papers or less PDFs.
Uh-huh.
Everybody wants videos. Everybody wants information fast.
Yeah.
Turnover, people is leaving the companies very often, so we have a lot of rotation. And I know as a fact that you guys think a lot about this because you have very strong
Mhm.
education programs. So, what do you think is next for education programs?
Well, we just talked about AI. So
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
definitely I will have a role in it. I think that and I'm saying that just because we just talked about it, right? We talked about labor shortage. We talked about how less and less people want to be in agriculture doing the heavy lifting, the hands-on work, because it's hard. And we are using more and more machinery out there, and AI obviously can help all of that with programming, coding, automation, making things more efficient. So we can benefit from that. But talking about education, how people are going to learn, I think AI will be a big part of that. It will help you bring knowledge from very different sources to one place at the same time, summarizing, digesting, also customizing things for you, for your specific question, your specific need, your specific um, um, yeah, for what you want to know at that point in time. um, Videos absolutely are right now what people like to see and learn from the most, I believe. I see that in multiple generations. You talked about TikTok, and the obviously misleading information, but it's whether it's misleading or not, it's still where people are most of the times getting their information from. So I think video, like you're just doing right now, is still number one in everyone's list. And I think that AI is coming up very quickly. You see everyone now using browsers, and even in their own browsers, right? There is now an AI search comes at the top to gather information and help you get educated.
Okay. So, Manuela, we hit the 45 minutes. I know that we can talk for hours. My last question, I don't know if it's tough question or not. Can we have this conversation in Spanish someday? No?
Oh,
No, I was just
Portugal,
kidding. Huh?
Portugal.
Portuñol doesn't exist. I can assure that Portuñol doesn't exist.
No, it doesn't, but everyone speaks it,
Doesn't
right?
exist. No, 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 no. I'm just kidding. So I'm really excited about this conversation, Manuela. I'm really thank you for being open. I know that you're kind of busy, but like I say before, I think that like we should talk, open these spaces for conversation is something that
Yes.
maybe we need a little bit more in the industry. uh, Obviously, I know, and we do it. The technical material. By the way, like an announcement, soon we're gonna have Paco Fernandez in a webinar talking about technical things and what he really is an expert. But also this conversation. I think that we need to take care of us and be open to have these conversations to inspire people. Manuela, thank you very much and hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Fantastic work keeping the transparency and the conversations open in our industry, Rodolfo. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you guys and thank you everybody. See you in the next one. Bye bye.